to a world where everyone and their sister has a podcast comes another one. Join us weekly as we explore the dark back alleys of irreverence and the spider-infested corners of nerdkind. This is the Irreverent Nerd Podcast. I'm Richard.
And I'm Will.
And together we're
The Irreverent Nerds. Bum, bum, bum.
Coming to you live-ish from beautiful downtown Winston-Salem. We are the Irreverent Nerds. I am your host and creator, Richard Best, and with me is my co-host and co-creator, the infamous, the indomitable, I ran out of adjectives.
The wily, the incontemptible. I don't know. I'm making up things now. Will Warrior.
Incontemptible. I like that. Incontemptible.
What
Not
does it
contemptible,
mean, though?
but incontemptible. Anyway,
I just said it.
William Thomas Boyer.
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 Boyer. I like saying it that way. Boyer. I was practicing earlier. Boyer. William Thomas Boyer. Hello, I am Puss in Boots. Anyway, we are sitting in just outside of the old R.J. Reynolds tobacco factory. In fact, you can see the giant smokestacks from where we're sitting. This whole area, though, has been transformed into like med tech buildings and fancy apartments and restaurants and office space. It's a pretty hopping spot nowadays here in downtown Winston.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
nice.
my first time here.
Come down here a lot. Like, and if you go across the way through there's like a pizza place and a brewery and like a place where they have concerts every weekend. Pretty much, like it's nice. It's hopping. Like, I know when I got here in 2001, like downtown Winston-Salem was dead. Like there wasn't. I don't think there wasn't much of anything going on. Not that I was necessarily looking, but like I just don't remember hearing about anything. And there wasn't. There were like not that many restaurants downtown back then. I think the first brewery that came to town was Foothills. That was on 4th Street.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how many years ago that was. Like over 10, I know that. Like
I've
maybe
heard
15.
of it.
Foothills Brewery.
It sounds familiar.
They started on 4th Street, or at least they have like a restaurant. I'm not sure if they ever actually brewed on 4th Street. I think they did at one point. And then they moved out to another business park further out of town where they have a big brewery now, and they distribute all over the state and probably over multiple states now, I would imagine. But yeah, they were the first one around here to go big, and then a bunch of other microbreweries keep popping up around the Piedmont Triad, and it's like Starbucks, 30 years ago. Now microbreweries are popping up everywhere. It's the new.
I wonder if it's too late to buy some stock.
Some stock.
Can you imagine if you bought stock at Starbucks when they were brand new?
Well, that's the thing. If they ever get big enough to sell stock, then they're not a microbrewery anymore. Technically, they're a brewery.
Oh,
like Sierra Nevada. It's based out of Asheville and California. They have a big place over in Asheville. I don't know if they're big enough to be publicly traded yet. But,
I heard,
but they wouldn't be a microbrewery anymore.
I heard that there was this microbrewery out in California that was dealing with the water crisis that they had a while back. It was probably before the pandemic.
Oh, so they didn't have enough water to make beer?
Yeah, so they started using treated sewage.
Oh, crap.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that wasn't Sierra Nevada. I haven't had any of their beer in a while, but yeah, I couldn't see them doing that. Like I feel like they're too conscientious. Although, who knows? When money's on the line, man.
It was recycled water.
That's horrible. I mean, treated, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, all our tap water was sewage at some point, probably, and it's been treated. That's why I use a filter on my sink. I don't drink straight out of the tap.
This is why, starting today, I will not drink tap.
Yeah, man.
Thank
Plus,
you for
plus
that
you don't know
image.
what's in the pipes and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're rusted, all kinds of crap. So yeah, I'm like, use a filter.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway.
Anyway, now that we've completely ruined your desire for water,
Well, for tap water.
tap water.
You know, I know they. Now, obviously, it's much more potable than if you just go, you know, fill up out of a river or something. You know, it's cleaner than that. But yeah, like my place of residence, I can literally smell the chlorine in it when I try to drink it, and I can't stand it. So I was like, but the filter takes it out. Like I have like a Brita filter or something.
Wow.
It takes out the chlorine, at least enough where I don't notice it. But yeah. But no, obviously they do use the chlorine to kill bacteria and stuff like that. Same reason it's in swimming pools. But yeah, I was like, I don't want to drink that. Ugh. No thanks. No thanks. Anyway, once again, so we're here. So this particular topic, we're finishing up horror month, and this was your idea. So tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Well, we are going to be talking about Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, starring Bruce Campbell.
Et al.
This is, no, I don't love it as much as I love Ghostbusters, of course, but this is definitely up there on the high nerd meter.
It's in Will's nerd pantheon.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
And it's funny, I did not know that. I didn't know you liked these movies until recently. Like,
Well, I like comedies.
mm-hmm.
That's why I prefer Ghostbusters over, say, Friday the 13th or Halloween or...
Oh, yeah.
Or, well, I guess Freddy Krueger has its funny moments, I guess.
Does it? I've never seen any of them, so...
Well, I assume so, given that Freddy Krueger has a mouth on him. You know what I'm saying? He talks a lot.
Oh, I suppose...
Richard was like, I have no idea
I
what
suppose
he's
there
talking
might
about.
be some dark humor. What the heck?
I've never seen a Freddy Krueger movie, though. Nightmare on Elm Street, I've never seen one.
I have not either. Nor have I seen the original Halloween or any of the subsequent sequels.
Mandy,
I would like to see the original at some point.
Yeah,
like,
Mandy's-
this is a classic, right?
Mandy is really big on the Halloween franchise, so I have seen quite a few of the Halloween films. I got into them. They're not
Okay.
my favorite, but
Yeah, like, I'm not necessarily a big
They're
fan
not bad.
of slasher, at least not... I suppose, I don't know if that's like the original slasher movie, but it definitely made that genre more popular, I think. Or it boosted that up. Not to mention Halloween. I was just listening to a podcast. It was called Throughline, one of my favorite podcasts.
Cool.
There's a lot of NPR podcasts that I like to listen to because they just dive deep into stuff, man. Like Throughline, they'll talk about current events, but they'll trace it back to its origins. Like they'll go back in history and they'll trace the through line up to current events. But they did one on the history of Halloween and how it came to America.
cool.
And apparently Irish immigrants brought it over, as it was, ironically enough, it was a holiday that the Catholic Church basically created because they were trying to produce like a hybridization of their religion and the religions that already existed in the British Isles, like in Ireland
Right.
and Scotland. So like Celtic traditions and the like. So they were trying to create like a hybrid, and I think that's kind of how it developed. And the Irish that immigrated over here, many of them, they brought that holiday with them because before that, Americans didn't celebrate it. But then Irish immigrants kind of introduced it apparently to Americans, and then we gradually adopted it. It's gone through cycles over the last century of popularity, and then there'll be backlash from conservatives who are like, it's evil, it's of the devil, and it'll kind of go back and forth and up and down. But when you got to the 70s and 80s, it like really blew up, and a big part of that was movies, like Halloween.
Right.
And then as you get a little further, like Evil Dead, or just, so you have this explosion of horror movies. Sorry about the noise. We are here in downtown, so there you will hear some traffic noise. You'll probably hear a waterfall over here in the distance. Some nice ambiance.
Some nice city ambiance, you know, some police sirens, some staggering and burping, maybe a waft of skunk. I'm kidding.
Hopefully not.
I'm kidding. I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
This is actually a very nice area.
It is, yeah. Like there is, I mean, you find areas to drink, but this is not the spot necessarily where you would find a lot of drunks, at least not on a Monday night.
Right.
Maybe a Saturday night after midnight.
I'm just teasing our audience.
But yes. Yeah, on a Monday night at 8 o'clock, you're not going to find too many drunk people around this particular area. If you want to go up the road a little ways to some dive bars, you probably would.
Oh, okay.
But, sadly. Anyway, I keep saying that. I get off topic. So
that's why totally we should just rename the podcast Hey Look a Squirrel, or
yeah,
where
like
the heck is this
about.
going?
Speaking of which, just a quick note on that. For those of you who didn't make it to the end of last week's episode or haven't yet listened to last week's episode, just make sure our fans, such as they are, know what's coming. We're discussing the possibility of ending this podcast, the Irreverent Nerds podcast. If we do, it'll probably be with season 4 will probably be the last if we decide to go ahead with that. But that will not be, fingers crossed, that will not be the end of Will and I's podcasting ventures together. We plan to continue either with a pared down Irreverent Nerds or with a totally brand new podcast. It'll be similar in that we'll be doing some type of film review or TV review of some sort, but it'll probably be once a month. And it's kind of like it's like time and quality to me are the two issues there. It's like don't have the time to do a weekly podcast up to a high quality level. It's just, typically I might put 4 or 5 hours in a given week, like depending on the week total, like if you include everything, including social media and such. But to really produce a high quality episode that's well written, well researched, well edited, it's not really enough time. So if we go to like once a month, then we'll be able to, at least that's the idea, put out a higher quality episode that has better research, better written, more creativity infused into it. So that's kind of the idea. And yeah, we're both, we have other creative ventures that we want to get into. I mean, Will's already in that. You've been getting back into doing more comics again. And
yeah, I have 2 different web comics I'm doing. Dan Johnson or Dave No might message me one day and say, hey, do you want to do this comic or that comic?
Yeah, you get like some lettering or some coloring, or do you inking occasionally too?
And responsibilities at work are increasing, things like that. I work a lot. I get called in a lot.
Yeah, and I work full time, and I have 4 kids, obviously. And I mean, to anybody who's listening to a podcast, so those things take some time.
Soon.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot going on, and this type of podcast, to be able to really do it well, like Will and I, we just don't have the time to really put into it that it would need to get up to high quality. But we might be able to do that with 1 episode a month, and maybe if that takes off and gets popular, we may eventually do like a Patreon where we do 1 bonus episode, just one a month for the patrons. Try to keep it up to a similar level of quality, but with more behind the scenes kind of fun stuff. But that's if the monthly podcast takes off. There's not too many podcasts that just do a once a month episode, so we'll see how that goes. But for me, like I'd like to do better quality, but continue podcasting. So nerds, just so you know, that's coming up. We're planning to see. We debated a little bit, but I think we're going to see season 4 through to the end, which means it'll end right before Christmas. And we're doing Miyazaki month next month, November. Then December, one of the things we are definitely going to cover in December, and we've already talked about this, is The Simpsons. We have got,
right,
especially if we're going to be ending the podcast, like we've got to cover The Simpsons before we finish. We've talked about it too much to not do that. So we're going to cover that at least one of the episodes. Who knows? Maybe we'll do an entire Simpsons month. Maybe we got to talk about that.
Yeah,
but we're definitely going to do one episode on the Simpsons before we finish or before we go to the new schedule. And so yeah, be looking for that. But yeah, Miyazaki month next month. So we're going to cover 4 different Miyazaki films, one each week. And I will tell you now, Spirited Away is definitely one of them. But you're just going to have to wait and see what the others are. We're not going to tell you just yet. But that's coming up in November. So now to Evil Dead 2. If you want to bring ye old Wikipedia up, Mr. Boyer, we can take turns talking about this film here. Yeah, and this is one thing too, like the research, I want to actually do my own writing, like have enough time to actually write my own synopses and like have some fun with it. I've been listening to another podcast, the Film Flamers, plug for them by the way. I doubt that they're listening to this, but you never know. But yeah, plug for their podcast. Check it out. It's really fun if you love the horror genre, and even if you want to enjoy it vicariously, which is a little bit more my speed with 2 guys that just have a lot of fun doing it, and check them out. But they do that. They have fun with it. They take turns writing the synopsis, and they write it, and the other person has to read it, and they try to make each other laugh, and it's pretty fun. But anyway, check their podcast. But I like to do something more creative like that. But for now, yeah, old Wikipedia. So, Will, if you're ready, if you want to kick us off with the first paragraph there, and we'll just go back and forth talking about this film, Evil Dead 2.
So, Evil Dead 2, also known in publicity materials as Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn, is a 1987 American comedy horror film directed by Sam Raimi, who co-wrote it with Scott Spiegel. That's right, the Sam Raimi who did Spider-Man. The second installment in the Evil Dead film series, it is considered both a remake and a sequel, or a requel, to the Evil Dead movie from 1981, which I don't recommend because it bored me to death. It stars Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams, who vacations with his girlfriend to a remote cabin in the woods. He discovers an audio tape of recitation from a book of ancient texts, which you can buy on Etsy, by the way. And when the recording is played, it unleashes a number of demons which possess and torment him.
Not the actual book, by the way, but a copy, I'm assuming. Or can you buy the original? That would be...
replicas of the pages.
I was going to say. All right, so after the critical and commercial failure of Crime Wave in 1985, never even heard of that. Probably a good reason. Raimi, producer Robert Tapert, and Campbell began work on a sequel to The Evil Dead at the insistence of their publicist Irvin Shapiro. Having endorsed the original film, author Stephen King brought the project to the attention of producer Dino De Laurentiis, with whom he had been making his directorial debut, Maximum Override. De Laurentiis agreed to provide financial backing and assigned the filmmakers a considerably larger budget than they had worked with on the original film. Although Raimi had devised a premise set in the Middle Ages and involving time travel, De Laurentiis requested that the film be similar to its predecessor.
Evil Dead 2 was shot in Wadesboro, North Carolina, and Detroit, Michigan in 1986, and featured extensive stop-motion animation and prosthetic makeup effects created by a team of artists that included Mark Shostrom, Greg Nicotero, Robert Kurtzman, and Tom Sullivan, the latter of whom returned from the original film. The finished film was released in the United States on March 13, 1987. Due to its high level of violence, it was released through a pseudonymous distributor to curb an anticipated X rating from the Motion Picture Association of America. I don't even know what that means.
It means the company they distributed to. I read about this somewhere else.
Okay.
Rosewood Pictures or something, or Rosebud Pictures, was fake.
Oh.
I don't know why that would let you get around being rated by the Motion Picture Association. But
yeah, I don't know. And ratings must have been much different back then. I think that... And there's the train. Good old city life.
Alright, so that's a little too loud, so we're going to pause this for a few minutes and then come back when that train has passed.
like to take a moment to talk to you about the Irreverent Nerds. They're sitting here in my hideout, all tied up. So they can't say this themselves, but they would like you to know that there are multiple options by which you can connect with them. Their Instagram handle is @irreverent_nerds. They're on Facebook and YouTube as simply the Irreverent Nerds. Ugh, so pedantic. And of course, they are on your podcast app. If you listen on Spotify, scroll down and you will see a question. What did you think of this episode? They welcome your feedback, or so they told me. They also post episode-specific polls and questions from time to time, so please feel free to jump in and give them your 2 cents while they're still alive. Alright, nerds, I've talked enough. Let's get back to this week's episode. It might be their last.
And we're back. The train has passed.
As we were saying, much like The Evil Dead, it was widely acclaimed by critics who praised its humor, Raimi's direction, and Campbell's performance. Many have considered it superior, like myself, to its predecessor, and similarly, as one of the greatest horror films ever made. Despite being given a somewhat limited release, it was a minor box office success, grossing just under $6 million.
As with the first film, Evil Dead 2 has accumulated a large international cult following. In 1992, it was followed by the direct sequel, Army of Darkness, which utilized Raimi's original premise. In 2013, it was followed by the soft reboot and continuation, Evil Dead, and in 2015, it was followed by the television series Ash vs. the Evil Dead. A 5th film in the series, Evil Dead Rise, was released on April 21st, 2023, I saw the trailer for that. I did not catch the fact that it was tied to these.
Nor did I. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, I guess it should have made some sense hearing the word Evil Dead, but it seems so different. I'm like, especially now having seen the originals, I'm like, and seeing the trailer for Evil Dead Rise, I had no desire to see it personally.
I didn't know that Evil
thanks.
Dead was a soft reboot and continuation of. Did not know that.
Yeah, and I've not seen that, nor have I seen Ash vs. the Evil Dead, although I have heard about it, and I've heard that it's well regarded, I think. And Bruce Campbell's, he's pretty fun. Alright, so let's read through the plot here. Ash Williams and his girlfriend, Linda, take a romantic vacation to a seemingly abandoned cabin in the woods. While in the cabin, Ash plays a tape of archaeologist Raymond Noby, the cabin's previous inhabitant, reciting passages from the Book of the Dead, Necronomicon Ex Mortis, which he has discovered during an archaeological dig. The recorded incantation unleashes an evil force, also known as the Kandarian demon, that kills and later possesses Linda, turning her into a deadite. Ash is then forced to decapitate her with a shovel and bury her in a shallow grave near the cabin. That was one of the darkly funny scenes, I have to say. I mean, it's horrible on the one hand, but just made me laugh on the other hand because of how ridiculous it was. At dawn, the evil force throws Ash through the woods. He briefly becomes possessed by the demon, but when the day breaks, he is inexplicably returned to normal.
He attempts to flee the area, but finds that the bridge to the cabin has been destroyed. The spirit chases him back to the cabin, where Linda's revived head attacks him and bites his hand. He runs to the shed, where her headless body attacks him with a chainsaw, but he overpowers and slashes the deadite Linda to death. His right hand becomes possessed and tries to kill him, and he severs it with the chainsaw before attempting to shoot it with a shotgun. But the hand mocks him and ultimately escapes. Meanwhile, Noby's daughter, Annie, and her research partner, Ed Getley, return from the dig with the missing pages of the Necronomicon, only to find the destroyed bridge. They enlist repairman Jake and his girlfriend Bobby Jo to show them another route to the cabin, where they find an embattled Ash covered in blood. Thinking that he murdered Annie's parents, Annie and the others lock him in the cellar.
The 4 new arrivals listened to the rest of Nobi's recording, detailing how his wife Henrietta was possessed by the Kandarian demon, and that he killed her and buried her in the cellar. Henrietta, now a deadite, possesses Ed. Ash dismembers him with an axe. Bobby Joe tries to escape, but demonically possessed trees attack and drag her to her death. Annie translates 2 of the Necronomicon's pages before Jake turns on them and throws the pages into the cellar, forcing them at gunpoint to find Bobby Joe. Ash becomes possessed once again and attacks Jake. Annie retreats to the cabin and accidentally stabs Jake, mistaking him for the possessed Ash, before Henrietta kills him. Deadite Ash tries to kill Annie, but returns to his normal self upon seeing Linda's necklace.
With Annie's help, Ash modifies the chainsaw, attaches it to the stump of his right hand, and cuts the shotgun's barrel. After finding the missing pages of the Necronomicon in the cellar, Ash kills Henrietta. The trees outside begin to destroy the cabin. Annie reveals that she has only read the first half of the incantation and attempts to finish the second half. As she reads it, Ash's severed hand uses a Kandarian dagger to stab her in the back. She manages to complete the incantation before succumbing to her wound. The incantation opens up a whirling temporal vortex which not only draws in the demon, but also Ash in his Oldsmobile Delta 88.
Ash and his Oldsmobile land in the Middle Ages. A group of knights confront him and initially mistake him for a deadite, but are quickly distracted when a real harpy-like deadite appears. Ash blasts it with a shotgun, and they hail him as a hero who has come to save them, causing him to break down and scream in anguish. No! Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
So Will, do you remember, how old were you when you first saw this?
It was probably 15 years ago, more or less. I could be wrong.
Early to mid 20s, kind of in that range. Okay, so you were an adult when you saw it, so you didn't have an experience of like seeing it on cable as a kid when maybe you weren't supposed to, and like freaking out and having nightmares for days.
But I did see Army of Darkness first, and Evil Dead 1 and 2 were like on my bucket list to eventually watch. And I can't remember where or when I saw Army of Darkness, but I remember that I rented Evil Dead 1 and 2 from like some movie rental place. I don't know if it was Blockbuster or what it was. I don't, but
Family
maybe
Video,
it was Family Video, probably.
Yeah. Or Hollywood Video back in the day.
It was probably a Family Video. They were like the last to die.
Yeah, that's true.
But
at least around this area. Yeah, not that long ago, actually. The last one finally died out and went out of business or closed its doors. Yeah. Anyway, you were saying.
So
you watched them? Was it VHS or DVD?
DVD.
DVD. Okay.
And I absolutely loved Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 1, like I said, I think there was this moment in Evil Dead 1 that was kind of comical, where they tear open a deadite and all this coleslaw comes out of his midsection because they didn't have very good budget.
Yeah, and I think I was reading earlier a little bit about it, and apparently they filmed it over several years, like, so it was sporadic, which is why you'll see some mistakes, like I think in one scene Ash has like blood all over him, and the next scene he's like spotless.
Yeah.
Because like they filmed it like, who knows, like a year apart or something, you know. So it sounds like, I don't know if it was Sam's very first film, perhaps, or at least maybe the first one to get distributed. Like,
I feel like it was.
And he had to have been pretty young, because he's not. I don't know if he's even in his 60s yet at this point. Maybe, but yeah, that would have been over 40 years ago, like 42 years ago. So he must be in his 60s now, because he had to have at least been in his 20s at that point. But it sounds like it was like maybe a passion project for him, I'm guessing, and then maybe some of the actors were actually just like his friends, or maybe friends from film school. I don't know all the lore or the behind the scenes of the first film, but I do know, like, apparently they lived in the cabin where it was filmed, like, for the production.
Oh, really?
And like there was no running water, no power, so for weeks at a time the actors couldn't shower, like when they were there. they weren't there for the entire, because it was sporadically filmed, but when they were there during the winter at one point, and people got sick, and like sounds like it was an awful experience. So I'm surprised that, I guess Bruce Campbell was the only one who had the stomach to come back for round 2.
I guess so.
Of course, it was like 6 years after the release of the first one. Then they had the requel, as you said. But yeah, so for you, mid-20, but you had, prior to that, you had seen Army of Darkness,
Right.
So how did? Because I watched them obviously just this past week, but I watched them in sequence, not having seen any of the 3 before. I watched Evil Dead 2 first. In preparation, and then I watched Army of Darkness, which I'm really glad I did that and didn't just jump straight to Army of Darkness. Like, and I think you had suggested that, so I'm really glad I did that. So for me, I saw them in sequence, but for you, like, did that affect your? I imagine it affected your experience a little bit. Do you feel like it heightened your experience of Evil Dead 2 once you finally saw it, having seen Army of Darkness first, or did it change your expectation coming into it? Do you think?
Well, I didn't know what to expect watching the original Evil Dead films. I think that I watched Army of Darkness because I'd heard about its cult following, and it was just really, really highly praised. So I had to watch it, and I did. And I loved Army of Darkness. But I have to say that coming in, I was saying earlier that there was a funny coleslaw scene in Evil Dead 1, if I remember correctly. But what I was going to say is, otherwise, I didn't really like Evil Dead 1 because it was not a comedy. It was, I think they were trying to do a straight-up horror film, and I just don't think it worked. It didn't work for me anyway. But watching Evil Dead 2, I loved Evil Dead 2. It is hilarious. I especially love the scene where all the deer head and everything is just laughing at Ash, and Ash is laughing, and that's one of my favorite scenes. It just cracked me up the first time I saw it.
And like, for me, like, I don't know about for you, but like for me, granted, I think the first half of it I watched by myself. Granted, it was during the day, but like, something that struck me about Evil Dead 2, about this film, is that it managed to find that balance of like, it was legitimately creepy, like, and scary, and yet still humorous. Like, it's like over the top and yet somehow still scary. Like, it didn't go too far. It kind of hit just the right tone, at least for me. Like,
yeah.
And it walked that line between dark humor and legitimately being creepy. Like, to me, like, even with the stop motion and stuff, like, there was enough suspense, and I definitely saw some Sam's, like, which he's, you know, if you watch The Quick and the Dead, which he made in the 90s, and then obviously the Spider-Man films in the early 2000s, you see his like, what's now is one of his signature things is like his jump cuts, where he like goes, you know, like zooms in really quickly and does like jump cuts and stuff with the cinematography, the editing and whatnot.
Did he do that in Spider-Man?
Oh yeah, it's in there a lot. And then
I'm gonna have to rewatch that then.
Yeah, it's in Spider-Man definitely, and so it was cool seeing kind of maybe the genesis of that somewhat with this, seeing him do like the jump cuts and the quick zooms and stuff. I was like, yeah, it's Sam Raimi. So I thought that was cool. But no, I thought it struck that balance pretty well. I don't know, do you feel similarly? Like,
yeah, I think so. I can't remember if I was ever legitimately creeped out, but I know I was legitimately laughed myself. Laughed and laughed.
Did you watch it by yourself the first time you saw it?
Oh, yes, I did.
At night or during the day?
I can't remember. It was probably at night.
Wow, so it didn't creep you out. I guess, or maybe had you seen quite a few horror movies already at that point? Like,
well, growing up, I did see maybe a couple of the Friday the 13th films. I think I saw Chucky.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't think I was scared. I mean, this was my 20s, for one thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that Evil Dead 2 really scared, or Evil Dead 1 or 2 really scared me. I think it was more of just, especially at that age, being somewhere in or just out of Bible college, and just the mindset I was in, just being like, why is it rated R? Am I going to be in trouble for watching this? Am I going to see nudities?
There was one very brief moment, but it was not erotic at all. It was
Right.
more disgusting. It's like his girlfriend's corpse.
And then Henrietta in the fat suit.
Oh yeah. Not yeah, and I didn't bother trying to look. I tried not to look. Which apparently, and this is hilarious, like that was Sam Raimi's brother,
Yeah.
Ted, or at that point he was going by Theodore Raimi. You see in the credits, he was in the suit doing the voice and everything. I thought that was hilarious.
Eat your soul, eat your soul.
Speaking of which, I got some quotes pulled up here from IMDb.
Nice.
So let's see. Quote number 1. Henrietta, I'll swallow your soul, I'll swallow your soul, I'll swallow your soul. And Ash, of course, responds with,
Swallow this.
as he shoots her with a shotgun. Yeah, and I like that. I feel like Ash, having seen the 2 movies now, and I'm spoiling the second one a little bit at the moment, but I like Ash better in Evil Dead 2 than I do in the second one. I just feel
Me too.
I feel like he's cooler, a little more threatening, and funnier. But then he also gets legitimately terrified in this, and you see that in the performance, like the character does. Whereas the second film, he's like, I've been here, done that,
Yeah.
like, which in fairness, like he doesn't really face anything as creepy in the second movie as he does in this one. Like,
Yeah, I don't feel Army of Darkness is a horror film.
it almost isn't. Yeah, it's almost more of like an adventure film with
Yeah.
some horror elements, maybe. Whereas this is like straight up, definitely. Horror comedy, but still maybe heavier on the horror than the comedy. I would say, but the comedy's still there. Like,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, definitely horror comedy. But anyway, on to some other quotes. So, upon gaining the chainsaw in place of his lost right hand, Ash says, see if you can remember the quotes. Groovy. Oh, and here's one, just one word, spoken by Ash. Work shed.
What?
Work shed.
Work shed. I forgot that one.
Yeah, I forget the context. Yeah, I can't remember the context at the moment. But yeah, then for no apparent reason later he says, groovy, again. Oh, then early in the film, and this is kind of like his, I don't know what you call it, like he wants to be like a charming ladies' man, but he doesn't. He's like, he says to his girlfriend, says, hey, what do you say we have some champagne, huh, baby? And Linda said, sure. Ash, after all, I'm a man and you're a woman, at least the last time I checked. Yeah, it's like, so it's very sappy, but then that kind of fits his character, I feel like. I did like this part. It said, so Annie is reading from the missing pages, looking at a picture in the Necronomicon of someone, it's not quite detailed enough to know for sure that it's a chainsaw, but like the dude, like he's like holding up his hand. She reads, in 1300 AD, they called this man the hero from the sky. He was prophesied to have destroyed the evil. And Ash says,
You didn't do a very good job.
yeah, you're doing a good job with these. I'm testing Will. And then Ash is talking to himself in the mirror. He's trying to convince himself. He's like, I'm fine. And the mirror Ash jumps out of the mirror and grabs Ash and says, this is a little longer.
Nope, you got me on this one.
Okay. He's like, I don't think so. We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound like fine? Which, by the way,
I remember it now, but
that was I know they do it off screen, which almost makes it worse. That was a legitimately like terrifying. That was one of the scenes that was like it had humor in it, but it was legit scary too. I felt like not like I'm 40 years old. It didn't make me go run into the covers, but it was creepy, like where his the head comes back to life and bites him. And she's making these ridiculous like Donald Duck noises. Well, like like that. It's probably Sam Raimi's brother doing like that was funny, but it's still creepy too somehow. And then he puts her head in a vice to get it off of his hand, and of course proceeds. And she's still alive. And then they cut in with the actual actress at that point, like her actual head there with the makeup on and stuff, and that made it creepier. And then of course off camera, I mean you still see the blood, but off camera he like saws her head in two basically. And the fact they did it off camera I thought made it more effective. But that was like legit disturbing, and yet somehow still humorous because there was so much blood. It was like over the top.
Yeah.
And like Bruce Campbell was just like so like over the top sincere in all of his scenes. Like, let's see. And some others like Annie says, the first passage will allow the demon to manifest itself in the flesh. And Ash says,
why would we want to do that?
Why the hell would we want to do that? You were close. You got like 90%. Okay, here's one. Bobby Joe says, you're holding my hand too tight. Jake says,
baby, I'm not holding your hand.
Oh, man. Who's laughing now? Who's laughing now? Oh, and do you remember what Henrietta says, like, after Ash gets thrown down in the cellar, and he's hearing the story about the wife being buried in the cellar, and then her head pops up? Like, do you remember the first thing she says?
I'm pretty sure she says, I'll swallow your soul.
So, I think this is the first thing. It's definitely what she's like, someone's in my fruit cellar. Someone with a fresh soul.
Yeah, that's it.
No, and I love this too, like right before, like right at the end, like right before before Ash gets sucked in, he's holding on to the house, like about to get sucked into the vortex, and he's just like, it's like, for God's sake, how do you stop it? I thought that was hilarious.
I always wondered if after he got transported back in time, and if that vortex just stayed open and swallowed the whole forest or something.
Oh, man.
The cabin.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, up in the hills of North Carolina, Wadesboro, apparently. Which apparently they filmed that out there, from what I've heard anyway, so that there'd be less interference from the producers who wanted them, or offered at least, to let them film it in Wilmington at the studios out there. But Sam Raimi was like, no, I'm going to go to Wadesboro up in the woods somewhere and do it there. Which must have been, I think they filmed at least part of it near Mount Mitchell as well, because I recognized some of the scenery. I think it's where the bridge used to, or where the bridge is now, up at Mount Mitchell. Maybe it wasn't there back then.
I don't know.
I don't know when they built that. But it looked like that area to me, like where the bridge eventually, I was like, and I was thinking when I was watching, I was like, this reminds you of North Carolina, and then I found out it was filmed in North Carolina. So that makes sense.
You've got a good eye.
All right, well, so this time around, what would you rate Evil Dead 2? How many nerd hats would you give it?
Shoot. Out of how many again? 5?
Out of 5, yeah.
I'm going to say at least a 4.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's not perfect, but it's really good. It's really solid horror comedy. And I liked that it struck that balance, you know. I like some of what they did with the sound effects, like both in a humorous way, but yeah, like when the camera's like running on the ground and then they speed it up to represent like the evil force like coming to possess someone, You hear that or whatever in the background.
Yeah.
Like, that was pretty creepy, or at least, it unsettles you. Like, I feel like, I liked somewhat Sam Raimi, early Sam Raimi, and seeing the seeds of what he would do later as well was kind of cool. So my first experience with Sam Raimi was Spider-Man, from 2002, like the original, 2001, 2002. I think it was 2002. Yeah. It came out in 2002. Yeah, that was my first experience with him, to the best of my knowledge. But yeah, so I liked visiting some of his older work. But yeah, I would also give it 4 nerd hats out of 5. All right, so on to Army of Darkness. So if you want to be pulling that up on your Wikipedia, I'll get us started here, and we'll talk some about Army of Darkness.
Nerds, we would love to find out who is on the other side of the microphone. There are multiple options by which you can connect with us. Our Instagram handle is @irreverent_nerds. We are on Facebook and YouTube as simply the Irreverent Nerds. Makes sense, right? And of course, we are on your podcast app. If you listen on Spotify, scroll down and you will see a question. What did you think of this episode? We welcome your feedback. We post episode-specific polls and questions from time to time on Spotify, so please feel free to jump in there and give us your 2 cents. All right, nerds, I've talked enough. Let's get back to this week's episode.
Army of Darkness is a 1992 American dark fantasy horror comedy film directed, co-written, and co-edited by Sam Raimi. The film is the 3rd installment in the Evil Dead film series and the sequel to Evil Dead 2 in 1987, starring Bruce Campbell and Embeth Davids. Fun name. I've never heard that before.
Sounds Jewish.
I think so. It follows Ash Williams, who played by Bruce Campbell. Yes, that's right. You know the truth now.
Bruce
Ash
Campbell
Williams
is the
plays Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell is the character. Ash Williams is the real person. I like that, actually.
As he is trapped in the Middle Ages and battles the undead in his quest to return to the present.
The film was produced as part of a production deal with Universal Pictures after the financial success of Darkman in 1990. Filming took place in California. I thought so. It looked like the backlots of like Universal Studios or something. So it took place in California in 1991. The makeup and creature effects for the film were handled by 2 different companies. Tony Gardner and his company Alterian Incorporated were responsible for the makeup effects for Ash and Sheila, while Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger FX Group was credited for the remaining special makeup effects characters. Tom Sullivan, who had previously worked on Within the Woods, The Evil Dead, and Evil Dead 2, also contributed to the visual effects.
Army of Darkness had its premiere at the how do you pronounce that word?
Sitges, I guess.
Film Festival on October 9th, 1992, and was released in the United States on February 19th, 1993. It grossed $21.5 million total over its $11 million budget and received generally positive reviews from critics who praised Raimi's direction, humor, visuals, and Campbell's performance, though criticism was aimed at the lighter tone compared to the previous films.
Despite not being a box office success in the U.S., it became a success on video release and later garnered a cult following from fans of the series, along with the other 2 films in the trilogy. The film was dedicated to the Evil Dead sales agent and Evil Dead 2 executive producer Irvin Shapiro, who died before the film's production in 1989. Now on to the plot.
The plot. Having been accidentally transported to the Middle Ages, Ash Williams is captured by Lord Arthur's men, who suspect him of being a spy for Duke Henry, with whom Arthur is at war. He is enslaved along with the captured Henry. His shotgun and chainsaw are confiscated when he is taken to Arthur's castle. Ash is thrown in a pit where he kills a deadite and regains his weapons from Arthur's wise man. After demanding that Henry and his men be set free and killing a deadite publicly, Ash celebrated as a hero. He grows attracted to Sheila, the sister of one of Arthur's fallen knights.
According to the wise man, the only way that Ash can return to his time is through the magical Necronomicon Ex Mortis. Ash then starts his search for the Necronomicon. As he enters a haunted forest, an unseen force pursues Ash into a windmill, and he crashes into a mirror. Small reflections of Ash in the mirror's shards come to life and antagonize him, with one becoming a life-sized copy of him, which Ash dismembers and buries.
When he arrives at the Necronomicon's location, he finds 3 books instead of 1, and has to determine which one is real. Realizing at the last moment that he has forgotten the last word of the phrase that will allow him to remove the book safely, Glatu Barada Nikto, he tries to mumble and cough his way through the pronunciation. He grabs the book and begins rushing back, and meanwhile, unknown to Ash, his ruse has failed and his body's copy rises from the dead, uniting other Deadites into the army of darkness.
Upon his return, Ash demands to be returned to his own time. However, Sheila is abducted by a flying Deadite and later transformed into the evil one, or into one by evil Ash. Ash becomes determined to lead the outnumbered humans against the army, and the people reluctantly agree. Using knowledge from textbooks and his 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 and enlisting the help of Duke Henry, Ash successfully leads the soldiers to victory over the Deadites, blows up evil Ash, saves Sheila, and brings, say that 5 times fast, save Sheila, and brings peace to Arthur and Henry. Using a passage from the Necronomicon, the wise man tells him how to return to the present by giving him a potion after reciting the same phrase as earlier.
Back in the present, Ash recounts his story to a fellow employee at the S-Mart department store. As he talks to a female coworker who is interested in his story, a surviving Deadite, who are present because Ash once again forgot the last word, attacks the customers. Ash kills it with a Winchester rifle and exclaims, "Hail to the king, baby," before passionately kissing the female coworker. Ooh, original ending.
Yeah, and so original ending, according to Wikipedia anyway, for the film's original ending, using a passage from the Necronomicon, the wise man tells Ash to swallow 6 drops of the potion to return to the present. Unfortunately, due to a distraction by falling rocks, Ash miscalculates the amount of potion needed to be able to correctly return to his own time, swallowing 7 instead of 6. As a result, Ash wakes up in a post-apocalyptic London where human civilization is destroyed, and he screams in dismay at having overslept. Universal Pictures objected to this climax, feeling that it was too negative and depressing in tone, and so a more positive and optimistic ending was filmed and ultimately incorporated into the theatrical cut. That is interesting, because it did almost feel a little bit like that was tacked on, like the ending that was in the film. It almost felt a little incongruous, and maybe this is why, because it's not what Sam Raimi wanted to do.
So that's interesting. So does that mean they actually filmed that ending but didn't use it?
Maybe. But yeah, that seems that I've heard a lot of stories of that happening over the years, and at the end of the day, I mean, I get it. At the end of the day, I mean, they're the ones paying for it.
Yeah.
So, and they want to have a return, which is fair. You gotta at least make your money back, right? Which it did. Sounds like it doubled its budget, which is, it's a reasonable success. And then with the money it made later on, on DVD and VHS rentals and the like, I'm sure it's definitely made a decent profit for them over the years. But no, that makes sense. But then obviously, if it's what the director doesn't want to do, you can tell a lot of times it's just like, this doesn't fit the tone of the film, or it doesn't seem to be done as well, as if the director's heart's not in it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So that kind of makes sense, because I didn't necessarily like the ending. I didn't really like it that much, to be honest. It did feel a little out of place. So I kind of like the other one better, I think, now that I hear about it. I don't know, how do you feel?
Well, a post-apocalyptic London might make sense, given that maybe the Deadites won and took over the world or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Like he screwed it up again. He can't say the word Nikto properly.
And that would have, of course, I'm sure would have led into another film by Sam Raimi where he's in post-apocalyptic London, but...
Yeah, I imagine so. Like, I imagine that maybe that was part of the intent of, like, making another sequel, perhaps. Or it was just he liked ending it that way. You know, it's I like directors who from time to time dare to end something on a downer instead of, like... As long as it's done creatively, I guess. Like, there's some people that just, like, want to stick it to you for some reason and just make it super depressing. And it just depends on how it's done. If it's well executed, then I can deal with that. I can deal with a sad ending as long as it's well executed, I think.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that he thought it was hilarious to end it that way. Kind of like a callback to Evil Dead 2's ending.
Yeah, where he gets sucked into the vortex. And
yeah.
Of course, at that point, I don't know if maybe people didn't pick up on their first time through, but obviously he was already foreshadowing what was to come with the sequel. I caught something as we were reading in the beginning about some of the production, like even in terms of like who financed and distributed this film. I didn't realize Darkman came in between.
I didn't realize that Raimi did Darkman.
Have you seen it? I have not seen it yet.
Is that the superhero film with the man who gets badly burnt and wears bandages or something?
Yeah, it's like Liam Neeson.
I've seen pieces of it.
I have a very particular set of skills. I will find you, and I will kill you. Different movie. Same guy.
I'll look like
same
Darkman when I do it.
Same actor, though. But yeah, I haven't seen that yet. Like I remember I've seen it. Yeah, it's one of those, like, you see it all over the years. Like I've seen the letterbox copy so many times, but just never have gotten around to seeing it. So that's cool. You got more financing, and I say this with love, Sam. I wish you would have done a better job with it.
Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having just watched Evil Dead 2 and then watching this immediately on its heels, I didn't like it as much as Evil Dead 2. Honestly, I think the tonality, which sounds like some other people complained about that too at the time, back then, I think the tonality was just too different from Evil Dead 2. And the comedy felt forced a lot of times to me, whereas it seemed to come more naturally in the first one. And obviously, it's never completely natural in the sense of like they wrote it all out and everything, but it just like it worked better to me in Evil Dead 2 than Army of Darkness. But you said, like, when you first saw it, you said you thought it was hilarious. Like you got a big kick out of it when you first saw it.
I liked Army of Darkness, but I loved Evil Dead 2.
That's a good distinction.
Yes. I thought there were fun moments in Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. I mean, there were some fun moments, some funny moments. But ultimately, I have to agree with you that Evil Dead 2 was a better film.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought Ash was cooler in Evil Dead 2. Like, I thought he was more impressive, not only in his fight skills. You know, part of what was maybe more impressive was, like, it was his first time facing these foes too, and he's like, so it's a little bit more of a survival situation, or just different, I guess. And maybe this was the way it was supposed to be, but he's almost a little too cocky in the Army of Darkness, and I guess rather than coming off as humorous, it's more annoying, I guess, to me.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know how you felt, but like, or maybe this time around, like, but for you, like, I mean, you saw that one first, so
I did.
So you wouldn't have noticed any differences in tonality because you hadn't seen Evil Dead 2 yet, so you got to enjoy it. You were an Evil Dead virgin when you came into it.
Yes. And when I did, I watched Evil Dead, then Evil Dead 2, because at the time I didn't know that Evil Dead 2 was a remake of Evil Dead 1.
Ah, yes.
So I watched them in order because I thought, naturally the story should go in order. And to be honest, it had been so long since I had seen Army of Darkness when I was watching Evil Dead 1 and 2 that I didn't really think about it so much. What I did think about was, I consider these horror movies. I never considered Army of Darkness a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Ghostbusters. Would you consider it a horror movie? No. It's
like
action sci-fi.
It has horror elements.
Yeah.
But like, it's not
comedy.
It's not a straight up horror.
It's an action comedy. Well, maybe not action. It's a sci-fi comedy, supernatural. But Army of Darkness, likewise, doesn't strike me as a horror movie.
Yeah, it's almost more like Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah.
Met like I don't know. I'm trying to think of another '90s film, Dances with Wolves or something. I don't know. I actually haven't seen that yet. This is like 6 hours long, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I like Kevin Costner, but not that much.
If you're going to be sitting in front of the TV for 6 hours, it's going to be something really good, like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, for a single movie, I guess. But then, in fairness, I watch TV shows much longer than that. So, but yeah, I'd have to be really engrossed in a single narrative to watch a movie that's 6 hours long. But no, to date though, I haven't seen that yet. But anyway, yeah, they definitely. It was obvious right off the bat with the opening scenes. They definitely had a bigger budget. Like the cinematography was at a whole other level in terms of like, quality of the video and such. But yeah, honestly though, it felt like there's something. Maybe there's something about like having a lower budget that forces you to be creative, that sometimes can fade away a little bit when you get a bigger budget and maybe you rest on your laurels a little bit and just don't, or you just try to fit in with the other big budget films maybe, and to some extent that might have been due to pressure from up the chain, so to speak. But there is something to be said sometimes for a lower budget forcing a director or producers to be more creative.
Yeah.
And sometimes it produces a better product, honestly, or a more interesting product. Not always, but it can. And that seems to have been. I know Evil Dead 2 had a bigger budget than the first one, but I'm sure it probably still didn't compare to the budget that this one had. But yeah, I feel similar to you. Like I liked it. Like if I were to compare the two, it was like I would say it was like I liked it. I don't know if I would say I loved Evil Dead, but by comparison, I would say something similar. Like I enjoyed this, but I really liked Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
So let's see. Well, we did quotes for the last one. We can still do a few quotes on this one, but I thought we could read some trivia. I'm actually on IMDb.
Yeah, trivia sounds good. I'm not really sure if Army of Darkness had very memorable quotes. There was a few quotes about Esmar.
Yeah, it was mostly redos from the first film.
Yeah.
And might have been a couple of originals that were like, I think, but they just didn't they didn't land as well, I don't think, as the ones in Evil Dead 2, at least for me. But let's see. Here's some trivia. So, Bruce Campbell was displeased with the studio delaying the film's release from summer 1992 to February 1993 and its re-editing of it. There were issues because the studio was unwilling to pay an additional $3 million to finish the movie, and they were using the film as leverage in a conflict with producer Dino De Laurentiis over the rights to the character of Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs. Interesting.
Huh.
Campbell stated that he wasted a year of his life waiting for the film to get released to cinemas.
Huh.
That was interesting. Alright, Bruce Campbell says that in order to make it appear that the chainsaw was always running, tobacco smoke was pumped through a tube that was slid up his right pant leg, up his shirt, and into the chainsaw. Okay.
What?
Oh yeah, because they couldn't like literally have it running all the time. Probably
No.
probably wouldn't be safe. Like
No.
accidentally chop off someone's arm or his own. That wouldn't be good.
No, it wouldn't.
Let's see. During the scene where Ash is being pelted with rocks, fake rocks were used. However, to get a more realistic reaction out of Bruce Campbell, and partially as a prank, director Sam Raimi pelted him with potatoes. This cut was used. Raimi also told the special effects people to make the fight choreography as difficult as possible for Campbell. Make him go through torture. Since he had to memorize his complex set of moves against invisible enemies that would later be added in post-production, Campbell would be cussing and swearing to keep up, and sometimes take 37 takes to get it right. So this film was apparently released in Japan as Captain Supermarket.
What?
According to IMDb. That's hilarious.
Okay, I guess
It does start that way.
the Japanese people have never seen
Army of
Evil Dead 2.
Darkness. I guess not. Captain Supermarket.
Captain Supermarket.
Let's see. An issue of the magazine Fangoria can be seen in the car's trunk. This was director Sam Raimi showing his gratitude for the publications, including the original
I
The
did
Evil
see that.
Dead, when it initially premiered. Let's see. Should we get into spoiler trivia?
Sure.
All right, spoiler warning, in case that wasn't already clear. Producer Dino De Laurentiis had given director Sam Raimi full creative freedom because Raimi had to work with a lower budget than on Darkman. However, Universal Studios took over post-production when test audiences felt that the original ending, where Ash's attempt to return to his original time caused to end him up in a post-apocalyptic England, was too negative and depressing. Universal ordered a more heroic ending involving a shootout at the S-Mart where Ash gets the girl. The ending was shot over a few nights in a lumber store in Malibu, California, and ended up in the version shown in theaters, while a longer director's cut that included the bad ending, quote-unquote, was released simultaneously.
Huh.
Raimi later commented that, quote, I kind of like the fact that there are two endings, that in one alternate universe Bruce is screwed, and in another universe he's some cheesy hero, unquote. However, the TV series Ash vs. the Evil Dead continues the story of the theatrical version, which is therefore considered the canon version. So the one with the store, I guess, where he does go back to his own time.
I need to find a way to find and see the
Director's cut?
director's cut.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. I imagine the ending might be on YouTube. We'll have to look that up.
That's the only part I'm interested in.
Let's see.
Unless there's like a whole lot of changes.
So originally, there was only meant to be one creature in the pit. Sam Raimi was convinced to add the second, dubbed the Pit Bitch, by its creators after being scared by it one day.
What?
So I guess he saw it and like it freaked him out. So I was like, you should add that. That's great.
Isn't that the first one he comes across?
I'm trying to think. I guess it is, because then the second one is the other ugly creature that makes it out later and then gets shot back. But speaking of the pit, like that was kind of a substitute for the way that they ended Evil Dead 2. It's like when he first shows up there, and then the first time they see him in action fighting against. First time the people from 1300 see him in action fighting, like right after he gets there, basically he shoots a deadite in the head. Which,
flying harpy deadite.
Yeah, which is a very good ending to the film, and I was a little disappointed that wasn't how they opened Army of Darkness, that they changed it. The change didn't work that well for me, to be honest. Like, it wasn't terrible, but like after seeing the first version, I was like, why you didn't need to do that? Like, why'd you redo it? Like,
I don't know.
How'd you feel about that? Because I know you saw that one first. So when you saw the way Evil Dead 2 ended, you're like, wait a minute. Were you like that, or?
No, actually, because it had been so long since I'd seen Army of Darkness, and I was just now watching Evil Dead 2, I didn't actually catch the change. But I obviously did catch a change when we watched them together. And I can see why they would do that for dramatic reasons. But the ending of Evil Dead 2 was so much more effective.
Yeah. No, I thought so too. And yeah, at first I thought it was like, well, I thought they were going further forward in time when they showed him like being a slave and whatnot, or being in the stock. At first I thought, well, after he shot that first Deadite, then he failed to do something else and they got mad at him, so then they like imprisoned him or something. That's what I was thinking initially.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, oh, they completely redid it, and they haven't seen him face a Deadite yet. Yeah, like it works somewhat within the narrative of the film, but yeah, I didn't like it as much as the original ending, or the original introduction to the soldiers there. Yeah, and also I think you commented on that. It's like also magically there was grass everywhere, and you know, this is filmed 5 years later. Looked like it was the same spot, but just there was grass this time, and it was dead when they recorded the Evil Dead 2.
Who knows?
But it did look like the same general area. Ugh. All right, let's see. Oh, here we go. Here's something about the alternate ending. The alternate ending in which Ash wakes up in a post-apocalyptic future was written and shot so Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell could set the stage for an Evil Dead 4 set in a post-apocalyptic future where Ash leads robots against the Deadites.
Wow, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. It would have been kind of cool. A little Terminator in there or something. However, because Universal Pictures disliked that ending and had it changed to Ash returning to the present day and saving a woman at the S-Mart store, and due to the film bombing at the box office, which I don't understand because they said it made $21 million total off an $11 million budget, so depending on how much they spent on marketing, it's not necessarily a bomb. Not like a huge smash hit either, but it made its money back and more, apparently. Unless that data was wrong. Let's see. But here it's claiming it bombed. So the Evil Dead 4 sequel set in a post-apocalyptic future was abandoned. Ironically enough, the history repeated itself when the franchise was later continued in the TV series Ash vs. Evil Dead. The third season also ended in a cliffhanger where Ash wakes up in a post-apocalyptic future. But viewers never got to see Ash fighting Deadites in the future as the fourth season was canceled due to declining ratings. Oh, that's too bad. And now I just spoiled the TV series for myself.
Yeah, spoiled it for both of us.
It did warn me, though. It said spoilers.
I wonder where we could go to watch that.
Oh, Ash vs. the Evil Dead. I want to say it's on Showtime, I think.
Yeah, but like, where could we watch that on streaming? Does Showtime have its own app, or?
Yeah, they've got like their own service, but you can also often add it as like a channel on like Hulu or things like that. Cool. But it's like $10 a month probably, unless you get a free trial.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait till that free trial happens.
We'll look at a few quotes here. We'll do a little bit of quote testing for you. Let's see. Okay, well, this one's too long to guess. So Ash says, "Yeah," after shooting King Arthur's sword in half. And then he proceeds to make a speech. It's like, "All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. You see this? This is my boomstick." Which I did like that. The 12-gauge double-barreled Remington S-Mart's top of the line. You can find this in the sporting goods department. That's right, this sweet baby was made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Retails for about $109.95. It's got a walnut stock, cobalt blue steel, and a hair trigger. That's right, shop smart, shop S-Smart. You got that? That was a long quote.
And this is why he's called Captain Supermarket in Japan. Wonder if, like, as a joke, I can, like, have a Super Milo comic strip where he runs into Captain Supermarket. I wonder if that would be copyright infringement.
Here's one. Sheila says, and you might be able to finish this one. Sheila says, "You found me beautiful once." Ash says,
"Baby, you got ugly real fast."
Close. "Honey, you got real ugly." But yes, very, very close. Old woman, I'll swallow your soul. Ash says, come get some. Sheila says, but what of all those sweet words you spoke in private?
Well, it's just pillow talk, baby.
That's all.
That's all.
Yeah, a lot of it's just not as funny. A lot of it, but there's a few ones. I think the only one that like really stuck in my head was like, "Give me some sugar, baby." But yeah, it was exceedingly corny, which is supposed to be, I think. Yeah, this is not. It's not quite as quotable. Not quite as quotable. Anyway, so, whoops. Finishing up here. How many nerd hats would you give The Army of Darkness this time around?
I mean, the quality was higher, but I don't think the writing was as good. So I'm going to give it maybe a 3.5.
I'm going to say 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it drops a star from Evil Dead 2, or drops a hat from Evil Dead 2. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. So, like, so it's not like, it's not an unenjoyable film, but it's not up to par with Evil Dead 2 in my opinion. Yeah, definitely like that one better. And it's kind of cool too that it was filmed in North Carolina, but that's beside the point. It's just better film, I think. Yeah. I don't know if they just tried to go too broad with it. Maybe too broad with the comedy, maybe a little too broad with the story, perhaps. There's something about how contained Evil Dead 2 was that obviously it heightened the creepiness, I think. The fact that most of it took place in the cabin, and like you have the way it like winds around with all those like backdoor passages and stuff, like yeah, and it being in the woods too, like out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, obviously I guess he's going for a very different tone. But that's one where that's an example of a studio or a producer intervening in a way that actually made a better product, because I remember reading in the Evil Dead 2, like the producer didn't like Sam Raimi's idea of doing what eventually became Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
So he's like, he wanted something closer to the first film. So Sam basically, like you said, he basically remade the first one more or less with a higher budget.
And made it a comedy.
Yeah, and I'm glad that happened, because yeah, I like it. All right. So, any final thoughts?
Shop smart, shop S-smart.
And give me some sugar, baby. All right, nerds. Until next week, we're gonna kick off Miyazaki month. Wait, hold on. Yes. Okay, that will be November. So yes, just double checking, because occasionally we have like 5 Wednesdays in a month, and I've missed that a couple times. But yes, next week we'll kick off Miyazaki month, and yeah. So look for that coming to a podcast app near you. Thanks for joining us as always, and until next time,
sayonara.
Live long and prosper. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Irreverent Nerds podcast. If you would, consider following us on Instagram. We are there at irreverent_nerds. You can also hit us up on Facebook. Just look us up there at the Irreverent Nerds. That's our fan page.
We have a YouTube channel as well. Once again, The Irreverent Nerds. Nice and simple, right? And if you go to www.irreverentnerds.com, that will send you to our Podcasters for Spotify, formerly Anchor.fm, profile, where you can send us a voice message if you want to, support us financially, or listen to the podcast. It will also direct you to other places you can listen, like Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, you name it. So, like, comment, subscribe, follow, all those good things, wherever you find us, wherever you listen to us, we would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, nerds, live long and prosper. Avengers assemble! I'm Batman.